recently spoke about the Dominion voting systems case. We've seen that now settle, and we've seen consequences for Tucker Carlson and potentially for Fox itself. What's your read on this, first of all? Was this departure necessary? And in fact, we've seen, two major departures recently with Don Lemon at CNN. But as somebody who is also, a watcher of the media, you've been involved in cases yourself. Give me your sense of how necessary this was.
Well, the media is in terrible shape. They've become as partisan as political parties. It's very hard to turn to one channel and get the whole news. You have to flip the channels, and then you still don't get the news. You get extremist views on both parts. I think that Fox did a disservice to the American people by settling the case. And I think there's going to be a lot of self-censorship involved. And the Tucker Carlson may, we're not sure, be an example of self-censorship, of not wanting to incur the $750 million of a gift to Dominion. And it was a gift. Dominion didn't suffer. It wasn't hurt. Its bottom line went up. It made up the argument about all that money. And it was essentially a case that was won, I'm not using the term technically, but on extortion. Basically, what Dominion is saying, and they're saying it to others as well, is unless you pay us money, we're going to expose all your secrets. We're going to get all your emails. We're going to embarrass you, and we're going to find fault with your journalism. And so a lot of the media will capitulate. Some of them will do it openly, the way Fox did. Some of them will do it quietly and behind the scenes. But the big loser is the American public, as people forget that the First Amendment protects not only the right of the speaker, the Tucker Carlsons and the Don Lemons, but the right of the listener. I want to be able to listen to Tucker Carlson and disagree with him. That's part of my right. And Fox has deprived me of that right. And so I think it's been a bad week for the First Amendment and for freedom of speech.
So let me distinguish between fiduciary duty and also duty, say, to the American public. When you say that they did a disservice, I'm presuming that's because this is information that should have gotten out there. Sounds like one would settle if you think it's a strong case.
I don't think it was a strong case legally. I think that it would have been one on appeal. I think that the Supreme Court might have reviewed the case. We don't know what would have happened, but it certainly would not have resulted in a $750 million verdict. I think that was not an accurate reflection of any damage that was done by Fox reporting. And now, Dominion and the others are bringing lawsuits against other people as well. I'm involved in one of those lawsuits, defending one of the people. These companies are now, their business model seems to be to sue rather than to count votes.
Well, it's interesting in such a high stakes case, say with Tucker Carlson. I'm curious if you had been advising Fox, if he had to go in light of, what came out during the discovery process.
No, I don't think so. I think they could have survived that. Everybody knows he's contentious. I don't agree with a lot of my clients, and you don't expect somebody who's on the air to necessarily agree with the people who run the show. I'm on a lot of shows, particularly when I have a book out there, like I do, Get Trump. When I have a book that I'm trying to have people read, I go on shows with people who I fundamentally disagree with. And I don't expect that they're putting me on the air necessarily reflects agreement with my policies, agreement with my politics. And I think the same thing is true with networks. Networks should put people on the air to look. You have tens of millions of people who erroneously believed that the election was stolen. They were all wrong. But millions of people believed it. And that point of view should have been presented to the American public. You can present it critically, you can present it objectively, but there's no reason to hold the channel responsible for every view expressed on it. Remember, if these were social networks. If these were internet companies, they'd be exempt under Section 230. But because they're not exempt. And there's argument that maybe similar rules should apply. But, these are big issues that we're going to see coming to the fore over the next years or so. In some respects, it's too bad that the Fox case didn't get its way up to the Supreme Court. It's possible my case will make its way up to the Supreme Court. I sued CNN for making up a story about me. Mm-hmm. I said categorically a president could be impeached if he committed criminal type behavior or crimes. They doctored the tape to take out all of my references to criminal, illegal, unlawful, corrupt. And then they had their commentators on the air say, Dershowitz believes the president can't be impeached even if he commits crimes. Exactly the opposite. And the judge found that I hadn't said anything like that, and that what they had done was foolish and essentially wrong. But the judge said under the law, which he disagreed with, you had to show malice, and malice is just impossible to prove these days. And so the Supreme Court may very well consider my case as a case that raises questions about malice. That would be ironic, because I was a law clerk during the year that New York Times versus Sullivan was decided. Mm-hmm. And I worked on that case for Justice Goldberg, for whom I clerked. I wasn't the main clerk on that case, but I helped and advised on that case. And it would be ironic if it was my case that caused the Supreme Court to reconsider how to define malice. At least the very issue of malice should go to the jury. And judges are taking it away from the jury and saying, no, you have to prove it to me first.